Hello and welcome to the Strength Summit. My guest today is Yves Nadeau. He's a legend in the world of short-track speed skating and the most medaled coach of all time. He has coached athletes who have won a total of 203 medals at World Championships and the Olympic Games. Welcome, Yves.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, you're welcome. Our topic today is training for sports from the sports coach perspective. At first, I want you to introduce yourself a little more in detail to the viewers, please.
Okay, well, about coaching, I started to coach later than most people in life. We will get down to that a little later. But the thing is the important things I learned from coaching is the first thing I learned, when I started coaching was the fourth level of knowledge. Okay, these are I know, I don't know, I know I don't know, and I don't know I don't know. And I realized over the years that many people are not familiar with that. As a coach, you have to be creative and you have to be emotive. If you do the same thing as the others do, you will get the same results. If you cannot show your emotions and your feelings, people will think that you don't care about them. Mm-hmm. Now, the four most important questions you have to answer as a coach is, what were my dreams? What are my goals? What are my needs? And how do I reach them? Now, what I consider important for a coach is, these are my thoughts, okay, is that you never get a second chance to make a first good impression. Mm-hmm. You are never overdressed. Everyone will judge you by your appearance. People who are habitually late do not have respect for others. When people ask you to do some things, you never say no. The people won't care until you show them how much you care. And with athletes, you don't have to be their friends. You have to be their coach, their boss, or their partner. You treat everybody the same. There's no favorite. You get to give everything to everyone. You have to dare, because he who dares wins. And the easiest way for me to get better as a coach was to surround myself with people who knew more than me. And the last thing that's important is authority and respect. Once you have compromised your authority or your respect, you never get them back. Mm-hmm. These, are my thoughts. If you want to be a coach and you focus on these things, or you make it part of your daily life, it will be very helpful.
Okay, thank you for that. There was a lot of information in this few sentences. So you basically say you have to be the dumbest person in the room to learn from all the others around you.
Exactly.
Okay, yeah, that's a good tip. Okay, first question would be, you already answered it, I guess. Your career as a coach is about 40 years plus, right? So you started in, what was it, 1970?
Well, with rowing, I started,
It's canoeing, right?
Canoeing, yes, mm-hmm. But that in the 70s. But, let's say with rowing, I started in 1973. Mm-hmm. That brought me to my first Olympics. And in 1980, I started with speed skating.
What would,
so yeah. 6+ years.
Yeah. What would be the first thing that comes to mind? The first lesson that you will tell somebody, okay, you talked about a few, but the first lesson in all these years that you say, okay, this was the one that maybe comes to mind first.
Is that I hate to lose more than I like to win.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Because for me, that there's a difference between losing and being beaten. You are beaten in a race or in an event, by someone who finishes ahead of you. And if during that event, you did your best performance, you gave 100%, you made no mistake, but the other people who finish ahead of you, he beat you, but you lose, if during a race or an event, you do not follow, let's say, the race plan, you not give 100%, then, you lose. You're a loser. I mean, I personally give 100%, and I expect 100% all the time from my athletes.
So basically, you could lose even if you win. If you didn't gave 100% and the other person was worse, you won the race, but you did not your best. Maybe
No, you could. I mean, let's say in skating, you just pick your nose during the race and you finish second, but the guy's disqualified or falls down, and then you happen to win. I mean, in the record books, you won the race, but in my mind, it's not a winning performance.
Okay.
Okay. And another thing is what was good for me as an athlete, is not necessarily what my athletes need. Okay. So that's why it's important that you test your athletes. Okay. If you have 2, 5, 10, or 20 athletes, they all need something different. To give you an example, my team was 20 athletes, 10 ladies, 10 men. When Charles Poliquin started to work with me as my strength coach, he would prepare the next weight training program for the next macro cycle. The macro cycle could be from 2 to 5 weeks. But very often I may ask him to prepare me 3 different programs, one for strength, one for speed, and one for resistance, because some athletes needed that and others needed something else. So that's important. Another important thing is that you need to plan. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Okay, this is very important. Now, when you're planning, whether it's for a year, for a macro cycle, or for a micro cycle, I mean, you have to plan based on the results of tests, previous training session, or competitions. So your priority is to work on the weakest point of the last cycle or competition. This is your priority. The rest is, you do maintenance on that. And, when you make a training program, you have to explain it to the athletes. You have to explain the purpose of the training session, why you do it, what they should feel about the program, what physical feeling should be. And once the training session is finished, then you go back and you check with them. In my case, I had 2 spies. I had one a girl and another guy, a boy, Nathalie Lambert, Marc Gagnon. They were my top. I could depend on the information they would give me. They were honest. They wouldn't say, oh, it was easy or it was tired. They would really give me the right time.
So they were indicators, basically.
Exactly, yeah.
Cool, okay.
I don't know if that...
No, that's very good information. And the important point is you have to communicate the program to the athletes, right? So that they understand what it is that you want.
Yes. Well, this is one thing I did. So at the beginning of every macro cycle, whether it's 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks, I would give them the program for the next 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks. So they would know what's going to happen in this cycle. Okay, what systems we're going to train, at what intensity and all that. But there's always the thing that it could be changed based on performance of what's happening during the training program. Now, many coaches, they don't do that. They come in, they say, oh, today we do this. It's just off the cuff, which is non-professional.
Yeah, as you said, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail, right? Yeah.
Exactly, yes.
From all the physical and mental skills that an athlete needs to have, regardless of the sport, so not only short track, speed skating, but every sport, what is the one skill that maybe is trained too often, and what is the one that is not paid enough attention to, maybe? So in general, or would you say it's totally individual?
Okay, personally for me, in most sports, it's technique. I mean, you have to know technique to be an athlete. If you're a thrower, a runner, or a skater, technique is important. But not everybody can be 100% technically. Okay, some are better to adapt to techniques, and other because of whatever they cannot adapt to technique. So at one point you have to cut down on the technique and work on the strength, the resistance, and the and the speed. Okay, because at the end of the day, you know, if you're technically perfect, you may win an event by fractions of seconds. But if you are strong, if you are resistant, you know, you will win the same event perhaps by complete seconds. And in some sport, you know, technique is more important than others. If you take jumps, throws, sprint, fencing, weightlifting, this is typically, you know, technique sport. So in those cases, you know, everybody has to put emphasis on it. But if you look at 95% of the total sports, they are all energy system-based sports. Okay, so it's good to know the technique, but then you need all the other components to become a champion. Pardon. And about the thing that it's not trained often, it's not necessarily training, but it's the feedback that's given to the athlete. Okay, feedback is often ignored or given in a way that will not upset the athlete. That's what I call the politically correct approach, you know. But this approach doesn't bring a winner. If the athlete makes a mistake during an event, he has to be told. Now, the best time to tell him is right after the event. Okay? Tell him, you did this. Okay? This is not good. Okay? Now, the problem is that what happens, you know, is that there's many people surrounding the coach now. You know, you got a physio, you got a doctor, you got a strength coach, you got members of the administration, you have freeloaders, and all these people will come after a bad performance from an athlete and tell him, oh, it's not bad, you know, just next time you try to do better and all that. But the thing is, you know, if you don't tell the athlete his mistakes, he will never know how to correct them. And also another point is many athletes, they have a negative self-evaluation of their performance. Now, this is a test I did, or anybody can do, is right after an event, if the athlete did a so-so performance, or even a good performance, but with a few mistakes, you ask him how it went. And 90% of the time, the only thing you will get is negative. The athlete will never find a positive point in their results. So this is something that you have to correct, because if you don't have confidence in what you do, how can you feel good in what you do?
True story. Yeah. So focus on the positive, but also tell the athlete what went wrong and that they can correct the mistakes.
But the telling what went wrong is, to me, is the most important. I mean, I got in trouble with administration because of that. Because you tell an athlete, you know, he did a bad performance, then he starts to cry. Okay, but my saying is better to cry, you know, in practice than to cry in competition. But the thing is, I mean, if you do wrong, you have to know. And the best time to say it is when it happens.
Yeah. Otherwise, you would be a fake friend who don't tell what it is that keeps them back, right? So that's important information. Cool. Yes, your athletes, you were coaching, won 15 Olympic medals total, right?
Yes.
And what is your favorite story from the Olympic Games? On how many Olympic Games you participated as a coach with them, and what's the favorite story?
Okay, so, you know, of the 15 Olympic medals, I do not have a preferred one. Anybody who is medal at Olympic is special in some sort of way. But, you know, earlier I thought about dreams, you know, what are your dreams, you know, in the first part. Okay, it may sound stupid, but my dream, since I remember my first Olympic results, it was 1948, and a Canadian lady, Barbara Anscott, you know, in St. Moritz, she won the gold in figure skating event. Okay. And then in 1956, at the Melbourne Olympic, a friend of mine's father was a member of the Olympic, Canadian Olympic delegation. And you know, I was starting to get interested in sports then, and I talked to him about, you know, being at the Olympics and all that. And from that day on, my dream was to go to Olympics. Okay, so I realized my dream. I went to 5 Olympics, you know, and I won 15 medals, but I won them from the back door. Okay, they were won for me, but the thing is I was involved in that. But there's one that comes to mind, you know, a little bit more. It's the girl in the '92 Olympics. She was a number 5 skater. Okay, she had no chance to race because the 4 top ones were very good. But then just prior to the last relay for the gold medal event, one of these girls, you know, was skating very bad for the past few days. So I decided to change her. And, you know, I told her, you know, okay, you go there, you have to do 4 times 1.5 lap. Just do it the way you do it in practice. If we have to win a medal, the other girls will win the medal. Okay? You're part of it. So she skated, and we did win the medal. The first thing she did when she finished, she came to see me and say, "Coach, did I do my job?" You know, but this is, you know, if it had not been for that, she would never have been medal. But she was a good athlete. But like I said, it's not everybody who can be a world champion or an Olympic champion. But in her case, she was at the right place at the right time.
Yeah, sometimes it's a little bit of luck too, right? So being there at the right time.
Yes.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. Is it also the same athlete that impressed you the most, or would another come to mind? The question would be, what athlete impressed you the most and why?
Okay, well, for me, all athletes who have reached their personal goal need respect. Like I said, not everybody can be a world champion, but somebody can do a special time. Okay, if you work with athletes, you find some, you know, they may be 6th in the world, and for them it's a dream come true because they never thought they would make a final or something. So these have to be taken into consideration. So I coach many athletes, and like I said, not everyone can be an Olympic or world champion, but everyone can be as good as they can. You know, anybody who finished top 8 at Olympics, you know, deserve respect. Okay, some won silver, some won bronze, some just do finals. But there's one in particular story that, to me, you will more the resilience, if you want, of athletes. So I work with a lady, Nathalie Lambert, from 1980 when I started until I quit in 1995. So when I started, she was 15 or 16. And with another skater, he's dead now, unfortunately, Guy Daigneault, they're the 2 skaters who taught me the sport. So I would come in early and practice or finish later, and then we'd go about the race and things like that, you know, everything. So I coached her from 80 to 95. For 11 years, she was 5th. For a couple of times, she was 3rd and 2nd. But then in 1991, you know, she became world champion after 11 years. Okay. And after that, she got 2 more world championships, and she had a total of 3 Olympic medals. So this athlete, like I say, she had resilience, but like any successful athlete, she was not an easy athlete to manage. She demanded a lot, but she gave a lot also. So our relationship during these years out there, it's up and down, okay? But we always respected one another. And in the end, we were both winners. Yeah. So, you know, some, like I say, are early bloomers and some are late bloomers. Okay. So in her case, it took 11 years, but in the case, let's say, of Marc Gagnon, first time he went to World Championship, he became world champion. So 2 different people, but winners in their way.
Okay. Was it a special thing that happened during the 11 years that she got better or so late? So like physical development, or was it mental or technique-wise?
Okay, she was not a sprinter. Okay, she was good at 1,500, 3,000 meters. You know, she could go forever. Okay, but she had no sprint. And one year with Charles, you know, we said, hey, we have to do something for her. Because it's very good. It's very hard to take somebody who's an endurance athlete and make him a sprint athlete. But he developed a training program for her, and that's what made the difference. You know, because then well, one year she skated the world record at 500 meters, but unfortunately she was disqualified. But we did, or Charles and I did, with programs, make her faster.
Yeah, there's a saying that you have to be born fast, so that you can learn to get endurance, or you can train endurance, but you have to get born fast. But in her case, she got fast later, right? So she was more endurance based, and then the program made her fast.
But that's what I said earlier. I mean, you have to constantly test your athletes and work on their weakness, and you do maintenance, you know, on their strength. And in her case, that's what we did. At first, you know, she had to sacrifice something, but she understood. She was studying physical education, so she understood the principle. If we do this, we won't work on that. So perhaps your 1,500 or 2,000 will go down for a while. But if we increase your 500, you know, and you put that together, then we can work. You know, because once this is good, then we go back to the second weakest.
There we are again at the point where you have to communicate the program to the athlete, and it made sense to her, and then she did it, right? So,
I mean, it's communication. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Next question would be: what is the which coach impressed you has impressed you the most, and why?
In fact, I could say there are three coaches. First one was Charles. I met Charles at a seminar, I don't know, 83 or 84 in those years. He was still a student at university, and I was already coaching the club, but I had to give him a lift because he lived near Ottawa and my wife's parents were there. So I was going to pick her up. So he traveled with me and we talked. And he knew more about weight training then than I did. So I asked him if he wanted to be my coach, and he said yes. So, and he stayed with me until I lost my job in Canada in 1995. So he's got a great part of my success. Now there's another one. He's a speed skating athlete. When I quit Canada, I went to work in France, and this kid was a skater in France. He was a sprinter. And 1 year after I left France, I don't know, perhaps 95, 96, I had a seminar in Chamonix, and there were 20 coaches from different countries, and I was alone on the ice in the gym and and on the track for everything. So I asked him if he wanted to help me, do demonstration while I explained. So we started the relationship together, and then I took him with me when I gave seminar around the world, and he became very good. And he coached in France, he coached in Canada, some ladies, and 3 years ago, I introduced him to the Russian, and he went to train in Russia. And Russia had his best results ever in speed skating because of him. His name is Sébastien Crow. And the third one is a guy you may know is Wolfgang Unsold. I met him in Amsterdam. I went there for seminars with Charles, and this is when they had the trouble with the volcano.
In Iceland, where the ashes were so much that the planes couldn't fly. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So I was stuck there for 5 weeks, and I met Wolfgang there because he came for seminars. And then on the way back, I was flying from Copenhagen to Amsterdam, and he was flying Copenhagen to Stuttgart. But when we got to the airport, the flights were canceled, so we had to travel by train. And I was stuck with him for, 18 hours, in train stations. And then I got to talk to him, and he impressed me a bit like Charles did, when I met him. And I had learned that he was very involved and a quick learner and good student and all that. So I was working with Hungary at that time, and they had no strength coach. So I invited them to a training camp in Budapest. they liked him so much they hired him, and then he started to work with skaters there and skaters in Poland. And in all three cases, these athletes, they developed on their own after that. So they needed a start, and I happened to be there for them. Like Charles helped me, and Sebastien helped me in some ways, and perhaps one day will help me.
Yeah, cool. So the next question would be: so trust is a very, very important factor in every relationship. So the base of a relationship, I would say. To quote you, they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So talking about the athletes. How did you show your athletes that you care about them? So what are the tips for prospective coaches when it comes to building trust with their clients or athletes?
Okay, so, well, in a way, it's a little bit of a long story. From age 24, I was a salesman until I started, even when I started, I quit selling in 1990. So even when I was coaching short track, I was a coach for a long period of time. I was a salesman for long. So I started coaching rowing, I was 35 years old. And when I started to coach speed skating, I was 42. So I'm lucky because I happened to be an Olympic coach in two disciplines that I did not know. I had never rowed and I was never speed skated before in my life. So what happened in the case of rowing is I met this girl when I was a president of the Federation of Canoeing in Canada, and we had a game. She was rowing, and I looked at her and said, I would like to do that. Then we got to talk together, and she wanted to go to Olympics, but she was a strong-minded athlete, and she had been kicked out of the team. So I made her a deal. I said, show me how to row, I'll take you to Olympics. So she called my bluff. That was a sales pitch. And she showed me how to row, and, she went to Olympics. As for speed skating, it was different because this girl was 20 when I met her. But the speed skater, they were, the oldest were 14 and 15, and the other ones were younger, and I think we have 12 or 15 of those. But the club president, I told them that I had a good reputation as a coach. So they listened and they believed. But to be accepted, you have to be part of the team. Okay, so in both cases, I trained with them. For the rower, I was a training partner in the gym and on the track. Okay, we did competition in mixed pairs, in rowing, like head the rivers and things like that. And and during the winter, we would cross country together. For speed skating, when I joined them, like I said, I did not know the sport. So what the athletes did is they got me involved in doing long distance speed skating races, on the oval track, 400 meters.
Yeah.
So that I know what the sport was like. So I was racing in my age group outside, and they were racing in their age group. But I had athletes all around the track, giving me hell, and they would judge me on my performance and all that. So it was humiliating at times. But I became like part of the team because of that.
Okay.
And another thing is, after a time that you've been practicing a sport, it becomes boring, okay? Because it's always done in the same environment with the same people, and after a while, all training programs, look like one another. It's repetitious. So it's hard to get athletes to keep their motivation. For instance, rowing is very bad for coordination because you use your arms and your legs at the same time, all the time. So you lack coordination. So what you have to do is do exercises outside that, to not lose this coordination. So in her case, she would work a lot with individual movements with the arms, pardon, less movements with two arms, and do a lot of plyometrics, running, and in the winter she would do cross-country skiing.
So it's total break from her original sport and
Exactly.
like
Now,
not both together, but you moving the arms and legs in different directions. Right? Yeah, yeah, good.
okay. Okay, for speed skating, okay, you train in an ice hockey rink, which is short. The track is 110 meters. You always turn left. So I had to devise extra types of training. So personally, I was training for marathon then. So some athletes, they would train for, long distance race, and some did half marathons. Okay. And then I introduced them to squash. I was a squash player. So we had squash courts where we were training, so we would go and play squash, or they play together. Not regularly, but once in a while. So it's good for movements and things like that, and it's a change. And what I did is I introduced hockey sessions. So our training sessions were 90 minutes on ice. So once every 3 weeks or so, we would have a session where we played hockey. All the skaters in two teams, 5 on each side on the ice, and it's up and down. You're tired, you get off the ice, and then somebody replaces you. So this way, you see, you're not training because you play squash or you play hockey. It's a game. It's not training. But the trainings they did playing hockey is interval type training. It's acceleration, deceleration, turn left, right. You're tired, you get off, you feel good, you go back. If I had tried to do that with a whistle, I would probably have been accused of abusing my athletes, because the demand was very bad. Now many countries do that. They included hockey, like China and Korea, which are not, hockey countries, but some of them do that.
Yeah.
So coaching, is a combination of teaching and selling. So what you are selling to the athlete is the love of sport, the love of training, the love of competition, and the love of reaching your goals. Okay? And like I said, to be a good coach, you have to be a good salesman. And probably one of the reasons my success is, that I have been a salesman, and it helped me a lot.
Yeah, thank you. That's very interesting. And yeah, I think the thing with the fun factor is very important for the athlete. That they train their energy system and their coordination without noticing it, really. Because you're not standing there with a whistle, they just have fun, and it's a training effect anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay, and why are some athletes more successful than others despite the same training? So is it a mental thing that they want to be the best and others don't want it so much? Or what would you say?
Okay, some athletes have talent, and others, they have guts and the will to win. Okay, that's the main difference. Now, with young athletes, the biggest factor is size. Okay, so some athletes, they develop physically faster than others, so they are better. Okay, 2 kids, 8 years old, one is this size, one is this size, the big guy's going to win all the time. Okay, but the thing is that the late developer, okay, to keep up with the big guy, has to train harder. So what happens in the long run, in most cases, is that the late developer will beat the guy who was beating him when they were 8 years old, because he learned to train hard, whereas the others, was good because he was big. So another factor is, for me, is I always train ladies and men together, based on their abilities, not based on their size or on their sex. So my training groups were a mix of ladies and men, and sometimes I would include some junior skaters in that, if they fit, in the for the event. So that's why if you look at my medal count, 101 medals were won by ladies and 102 were won by men. Now, if we look at details, for example, in the 500 and 1,000 meters, the men collect more medals than the ladies. In 1500, they both have the same number of medals over the years. And in 3,000 meters and 1,500, 3,000 meters and in relays, the ladies were better than the men. As a matter of fact, the ladies, I think they won world championship 10 years in a row in relays, and the men during the same time, they won 4 times gold medal. So I don't think it's because my girls were better than the girls from the other countries, but the fact is that, if you can do that time, just an example, at one point I decided that before the World Championship, the last training we would do before leaving is skate the 3,000 meters at a world record. So let's say the world record was 10.8 seconds. So the first time I did that, I told Nathalie, you go in front and you do 10.8 for as long as you can, and then you just move back and somebody will take over. 3,000 meters is 27 laps. She did 23 laps at 10.8, and but every year I did that, so it gives confidence. They know they can skate fast. Okay, so the guys say, well, the girl can do that. We have to move our and try to do the same thing.
Yeah. So you have to challenge them too.
Say again?
You have to challenge them as a coach.
Well, yes.
Get the best out of them.
Yeah. So, and if we look at history, when I left Canada, they separated. Now they train with sex, ladies and men differently. Okay, so now Canada is down to 4th or 5th in the ladies' ranking, and they never won a relay in the last 22 years. That's when I left. They finished 2nd or 3rd, but they never won one again. Okay, and another point that's important also is a coach will teach what he knows. And in many sports, former athletes become coaches. Okay, so a guy in track and field, he's a runner, he's going to start coaching that, or in other sport, water polo or whatever. But the thing is the coach will teach what he knew, what he knows, and what he did. So when I left Canada, they replaced me with some skaters who were sprinters. So Canada became very good in 500 and relays, both ladies and men. Okay, but they lost in 1,500, 2,000. So they never had a world champion overall since then. A couple of years back, they hired new coach, Sébastien, who I was talking about. He came in and he started to change the mentality. He changed the program, more resistance, more endurance. And now if you look over the years, they've improved, and some of the skaters now start to figure out, in final and 1,500 and 3,000 and all that.
And if you would have had similar athletes, like they have the same physical abilities, maybe, and you train them the same way, and one performs better than the other, what would you say? Is there some, there's a training champion and a contest champion, you say? Some people perform very well in training, but if they have to compete, they break down, and others are lazy in training, and if they compete, suddenly they can do their best. Is there something like this, would you say, or?
Okay, well, I can relate to that. I have two brothers. Marc Gagnon, I told you about. Was world champion at 18. He had an older brother, Sylvain. Now, Sylvain was a talented athlete. Technically, let's say he was 100%. Marc, let's say, was 60%. So, but Sylvain was good, but he was lazy in training. His brother was not so good technically, but he had a will to win. In 1993, they were both in the World Championship. They were both competing against one another. Marc, the not technical one, finished first, was world champion, and his brother, who was technically better, finished second. And the only reason is because one train harder than the other one. And I think that's the key to success. You know, you don't have to train hard, you have to train smart.
Yeah.
Because with Mark, at one point, we cut the technique because we were losing time trying to make him better.
So you have to train smart but hard enough, of course. And as the saying goes, hard work beats talent if talent doesn't work hard, right?
Say
So
again?
hard work beats talent if talent doesn't work hard.
I agree with you on that,
Yeah.
yes.
So you have work hard but smart, and sometimes with less talent you work even harder to yeah,
Exactly.
to make that up. Okay, good. Um, Next question would be three tips that you would give every coach on his or her way. In the beginning, you already told us many tips and quotes, but if you have three on mind that you would give a coach.
Okay, well, when working with athletes, you know, you know, because if you work with athletes, sometimes you work with young athletes, and or in case of strength coaches, perhaps you just work in the gym with adults. But for everybody, there are four stages of training. Okay, one is the fundamental, okay, the basics. With kids, it's fun with FUN, the
Uh,
mental, okay, because for kids, it's got to be fun. If it's not fun, they get bored. Okay, so the four levels are fundamental, and then you train to train, then you train to compete, and then you train to win. Okay, and these are four stages that you have to go through. And the problem with many coaches is that they go fundamental and they go train to compete or train to win. They start kids racing, you know, at 12 years old. Uh, the guy doesn't have even a beard, you know. So because if you miss one of these things, eventually you have to go back or you'll never make it.
they build up on another.
Well, they're burned out, but they lack something. You know, and I've seen it. People come from somewhere and they come and join the national team, but they miss some basics of training or whatever. So you have to detrain them and retrain them. So for a sport in a country, they should have a program where everybody teaches the same way. Okay, so then if you move from one city or one club to the next, I mean, you all have the same background, so it's easy to adapt. But, you know, if somebody comes from one part of Canada to Montreal to train, well, here in Quebec they train one way, but in Ontario or Saskatchewan, you know, 4,000 kilometers away they train another way. So you have to readapt and all that. Now, this is one thing. There's an importance in the relationship of the chronological age and the training age. Okay, because somebody may start to train at 8 years old, so this is chronological age, but it's his first year training. Okay, and then he gets to 12 when he's in his fourth year training. But somebody who starts to train at 12, this is in his first year training. So the two guys should not do the same thing, because the guy that has already 4 years, you know, is much more advanced. And this is one thing that when you coach, you have to take care of. Otherwise, people don't get through. Now, the other thing is goal setting. Okay. Now, good should be smart. Okay. If you have a pencil, you know, you can write the smart. So the S is for specific. The M is for measurable. The A is the goal should be ambitious or action oriented. The R is for realistic, and there has to be a time element. So in other words, if you set a goal, it's got to be specific, you can measure it, it's got to be something ambitious, but it has to be realistic. And then there has to be a time element. You make a goal, you say, okay, I want to be world champion. The kid is 16, so you have to go steps in between. That's a long term. But you have the short term, medium term. So this goal setting is very important.
Okay, yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Okay, so one other thing is, what you did yourself is not necessarily what you athletes need. So the reason I was successful as a sport is I never practiced, is that I analyzed the sport. and I looked at the sport as an energy system. So in other words, what energy do I need in a 500, in a 1,000, in a 1,500, in a 3,000? One race is 50 seconds. One race is 90 seconds. Another one is 2 minutes and a half. Another one is 5 minutes. So you have 4 races. It's 4 different energy systems. So this is how I train rowing. This is how I train speed skating. And if I train any other sport, that's the way you have to look at it. The technique you can learn, or you find somebody who's better than you in technique. And this is where most people are weak, is they don't look. I mean, I listen to, or I read comments on the internet about people that if you do this, it's not good, you will lose your strength. And if you do this, you will lose your power. And if you do, yeah, but man, like I say, if you're a sprinter or a thrower, there's stuff you don't need to do. But if you do 90% of the other sports in the world, there are things that you have to look at and start saying it's not good. So, and one thing, if you work with children, children are not young adults. They are kids, so they should be treated that way. A child's results or a kid's result should be compared to his previous result. Because if you compare it to people his age, if one is, 30 centimeters bigger than him, the bigger guy, will have this result. So it's very demoralizing for an athlete to be compared with somebody that's not his equal. You must keep athletes' records of all athletes and all training sessions, so you can refer to them and compare the results. For instance, I still have the records and time and presence and weight training programs of all my athletes starting in 1980. I still have them. As a matter of fact, before Olympics last year, Fred Blackburn, one of my skaters, phoned me before he was doing his peaking for the Olympics and says, "Yves, do you remember what we did in 1994, before the Olympics, because we had a very good program and all that?" So I say, "Yeah, give me a few seconds." So I went to my records. I say, "Okay, I'll fax you the program of the, of the macro cycle of that time." So, and I see coaches, because you see, if you have 15 or 20 athletes, you cannot remember everything they did. You may remember tomorrow, what they did today, but you don't remember what they did last week, last month, or the last time you did that program. Okay, so you see, if you don't test and if you don't keep records, you coach blind. Okay.
Bookkeeping is very important, right?
It is. I mean, for you and for the athletes.
Yeah. That you can compare what they did last time, maybe, or last week, or last month, or last year.
Like in skating, you have a training program. Let's say the program is 4 times 15 laps at a given time. Okay, and I do it today, but I know I did it, let's say, 6 weeks ago. And then I will look what happened, and I say, Charles, okay, last time you did 3 times 15 laps, 1 time 6 laps, and another one 2 times 15, 1 time 8. So I do this program now, and I look, well, Charles he did that perfect, he improved. And the other one who did 2 and 6, well, he did 3 and 5. So he improved also. Or the guy did everything, now he cannot do it. So something's happening with him. So that's why the next thing that you need to have is for the athletes to keep a diary, okay, where they keep, specific things that you want, good morning and evening heart rate, what they did, what they eat, how many hours they sleep, things like that. So that if something happens in their performance, you can look back and see where it went wrong.
You let every athlete of yours had to write a diary, like with a food log and sleeping schedule and everything?
Some did and some didn't. You know, you can, like they say, you can bring a horse to water, but you cannot make him drink.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, some people say, I don't need that. Okay, so like some athletes, they never wanted to train more than 10 or 12 laps. They said, I don't need that. The guy's a sprinter. But as an example, I had a skater who, before the 3,000 meters, he was world champion because he had done 500, 1,000, 1,500, and these, 500 and 1,000 is good because he's a sprinter. 15, he was okay. But the last race is 1,500. When he finished the 1,500, he was not on the podium because he finished last or something like that. So he had no points. So, and the guy, you can give me hell if you want, but I can look at the program and say, man, you don't want to do that. Now you're paying the price. So, yeah. What can I tell you?
Everybody is responsible for himself, right? Oh.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. What are 3 tips that you would give every athlete on his or her way? So maybe listen to the coach, or depending on the coach, of course.
Okay, so the first one would be confide to your coach. He is there for you. He has your future in his hand, and your results are his future as a coach. So it's important that relationship is good. If the guy is serious and competent, you should be okay. And the second one, I've mentioned before, you do not have to train hard, you have to train smart. Because I see some coaches, they have training sessions that last 2 hours, 2 hours and a half. Oh, man. It's ridiculous. If you cannot do a training program in between 60 and 90 minutes, something is wrong with your program. Okay. And then keep a diary so that you and the coach can browse when things go bad. So for me, that's 3 important things.
Okay. The third one was, excuse me, the third one?
To keep a diary.
The diary you're talking about. Yeah. Yeah. I think it's very important. Because if something went wrong, you have to see why, and you have to check it. And
exactly.
Yeah, if people try to remember what they ate the last days, that doesn't work. But if they write it down, they see, oh, there was a pizza, and there was not enough sleep. And
but you see, an athlete may have a problem, and then you sit with him, you look at the diary, and you see that his sleep pattern has been disturbed. Now he's sleeping 8 hours a day. Now he sleeps 4 hours a day or something. So you talk to him. Perhaps he has trouble with his parents. Perhaps he's trouble at school. Perhaps his girlfriend left him, or his boyfriend. She has boyfriend problem. So these are things that, when you look at the big picture, you see it. And sometimes it's the details, that screw up a program. And it's also the details that makes a program perfect.
Yeah. If you would hand out people the same program and one gets coached from you who wrote the program and the other does it by herself or himself, that would be a huge difference, I guess, because of the details.
Could be.
Yeah, I think so. Okay, cool. What are your plans for the future or your goals? Anything that you would like to share?
Well, it's not that I'm negative or not looking forward. But I was let go from Canada in 1985 because they said I was no good. I was let go from my last job with the International Skating Union because they say I was too old. But if I look at, in hindsight, Canada never had a world champion overall in the last 22 years. I had 13 from 1992 to 95. Now, ISU has no one to replace me. They may have a lot of buddies, but they don't have people who can give results. I wish I could help young or even older coaches reach their goal. I work with athletes, but I work with coaches also. As a mentor, my dream is that I work with someone and that one day that someone becomes better than me. That's a dream. And I know that, and this is where I disagree with a lot of people, because everybody needs a coach, okay? Because the guy on the sidelines will see things that you don't see. So even if I'm old, I can look at your performance and say, hey, what's happening? To give you an example, when I was coaching, when I was giving seminar, we on the ice, and I said to the guy, explain the program. So the guy starts to explain, and he says yes, and he says yes, yes, okay. So I counted, and the guy in 3 minutes he says 15 times okay. So you tell that the guy said it's impossible, so you record it, and athletes, they see that, and you see in their face that they're counting, the repetition of, and yeah, so this is one thing. And another thing that I disagree with is people that do not understand that somebody may ask somebody to help them. Okay, because as a coach, if I ask you to help me because you're better than me in weight training or whatever, they will think I'm incompetent. Okay, but you cannot know everything about everything. You have some strength and some weaknesses, and you will be as good as the people who work with you.
Yeah.
And the last thing is, I was told very often that I am a has-been, but I'd rather be a has-been than a never was.
Excuse me, didn't get it. The husband or?
Has been.
Has been. Okay, yeah.
He has been good. He has been this.
Yeah. Okay, I got it.
I've been called has been, but I'd rather be called that than I never was.
Yeah, has been is definitely better than I never was. Yeah, cool. Good statement at the end. I tried to sum up your interview a little bit, so some points that first come to mind was a lot of information. I try, but maybe something pops up in your mind again, or you want to correct me if I get it wrong. So first thing that came to mind was that you hate losing more than you love winning. So
that's true.
Yeah, that is, I think, that drives you, has driven you the most. That you want to see a good performance, even if the guy or the girl loses, she or he had to give everything, and then there's nothing to be ashamed of, and you can be proud of your performance. But it's not good if you win because the other guy gets disqualified and you had not your best performance or something like that. Cool. The physical and mental skills of an athlete, you said the thing that most get overlooked is energy system training. Right, so training for the specific energy systems that you need in the sport, or even in the specific distance. As you said, 500 meters or 1,500 meters is a totally different energy system that you need, and that sometimes it gets overlooked in training. So people focus on technique, but as you said, energy system training is very important too.
Okay, if I can intrude on that, in energy system, but if you train for 500 or for 1,000 meters, the guy who makes a strength training program, for 500 you need more power. Okay, so it's a different weight training program than the guy who does 1,500, because then he needs resistance, he needs to lactate.
Yeah.
So it's not just the energy system, it's all connected. I mean, because I explained that when I give the seminar,
Yeah, there's a continuum basically, right? From strength to endurance, and every sport is on one point on this continuum.
And technique also is different in 500 and 1,500.
Yeah.
And the strategy of the race is different also. So it's it's not just one element; it's many elements.
The athlete that impressed you the most was the girl. After 11 years, she became. World champion. The name was?
Nathalie Lambert.
Nathalie Lambert?
Yeah.
Okay. And she finally, after 11 years, she got it because, she stick to it, and at some point,
but you see, she carried on in sport. She was chef. She was assistant chef de mission in Barcelona. She was a chef de mission, I don't remember which Olympics. But and now she's in the member of the short-track committee at the International Skating Union. So many of these athletes, they stay with the sport, when they develop, and in business, sideways, they go up. You know, it's interesting to see the progression. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the sport teaches you more than just things you need for the sport. Also that you need for other things.
You learn to win, and you learn to lose, and learn to live with defeat.
Yeah.
Well, because you cannot win. Even coaches, any coach in the world, you look at his record, he has lost more often than he has won.
Yeah. Yeah.
Check any coach, the best football. Check him and look at how many he has won and how many he has lost. And it's always so in life you lose very often.
Yeah.
But the guys who get up are the winners. Yeah.
Yeah. You have to stand up again and make it better next time. Good. Very good. Then the three coaches, you named three that impressed you the most. The first one was Charles Poliquin. Second one, Sebastian, what was it last name?
Sebastian Cros, C-R-O-S.
C-R-O-S, Sebastian Cros. Okay, and Wolfgang Unselt. You told us a story about it.
It's not necessarily I don't rate 1, 2, 3. I mean, I look at the performance. You know, they're all good in their different ways, if you want.
Okay, cool. And then you said building trust is important with the athletes you coach, and you did it even if you were not competing in the sport, you were on the ice with them and did your rounds there, and so you become part of the team. And,
exactly.
And you also let them do something besides their sport. Don't make it boring. Like as you say, the fundamentals with FUN and big letters, even for the grown-ups.
Yeah.
Like playing ice hockey or doing some different stuff like skiing. To not lose the fun on the main sport, right?
Yep.
And get a training effect besides too. Good. Then some athletes are more successful than others because they train harder or train smarter, as you said. Even if they not have the same talent, maybe they train smarter. You mentioned the two twins, and the one that had more talent, the other one that trained harder, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. And regarding your plans and goals for the future, are you still giving seminars that people can visit that are interested in learning how to train athletes or become a good coach?
Well, you know, I'm still giving some, not as many as before, because like I said, some people let me go. But if you hire me to give a seminar, I can give a seminar on the things I know. You know, I won't discuss things I'm not familiar with. But
Okay, where can people get in contact with you? Like your Facebook page or maybe your homepage or email address for people who watch the interview and want to get in contact with you and say, hey, let's get him over or let him teach a seminar or talk with him?
Skype or Yves at shorttrackcoach.com.
Okay, cool. Thanks a lot. Yeah, it was very nice from you that you take part of this on the Strength Summit and told us about your experience. I hope that you give many seminars and spread your wisdom to other coaches, and that one day one coach gets better than you, which is the most important goal for many coaches. I think that you have some pupil or student who gets better than you finally.
Exactly. I hope what I said makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Of course. Yeah, thank you very much, and have a nice day. See you next time.
Okay. Bye-bye.